The city that morning was cold, gray, and impatient, much like Victoria Ames, the kind of woman who never waited for anyone or anything. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor of her penthouse lobby as she spoke into her phone. Yes, Edward, I know the driver's late. Do you think I enjoy standing here? This is supposed to be a professional service, not. She stopped mid-sentence as the yellow taxi rolled up to the curb outside, covered in a thin film of slush. The driver stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, with warm brown skin and calm eyes that didn't match the chaos of the morning. He opened the door with a courteous nod. Good morning, ma'am. Sorry for the delay. Roads are already freezing over. Victoria gave him a quick, dismissive glance. We're not friends, so let's keep it short. I'm late for a board meeting, and I don't have time for excuses. The man gave a small smile, unfazed. Understood. Seatbelt, please. As the car pulled into traffic, Victoria's frustration spilled into the air like static. Honestly, it's ridiculous. A city this size, and not a single competent driver left. What's your name? Marcus, he said simply. Well, Marcus, next time try being on time. Some of us actually have important places to be. He glanced at her through the rearview mirror but said nothing. He'd met her type before, the ones who thought kindness was weakness and money was proof of worth. He wasn't offended. He was used to it. Outside, snow began to fall. Light at first, then heavier, swirling against the windshield like ash. Traffic slowed. Victoria groaned. Don't tell me we're stopping again. Highway's closing ahead, Marcus said calmly. They're warning of a whiteout. I don't care what they're warning about, she snapped. You're the driver. Find a way through. He looked at her in the mirror, his voice even but firm. Ma'am, in weather like this, finding a way through could mean not finding our way out. Victoria scoffed. Spare me the poetry and drive. So he did. The snow thickened, swirling faster now, blanketing the city in silence. Cars began to pull over, but Marcus kept steady, hands sure on the wheel. The city lights blurred into white. Victoria glanced out the window, her voice softening for the first time. It's worse than I thought. Marcus nodded. It'll pass. It always does. For a brief moment, she saw something in him. Patience, perhaps, or quiet courage. But before she could say anything, the car jolted. The engine sputtered once, twice, then died. What did you do? She demanded. Nothing, he said, trying the ignition again. Battery's dead. The cold's killing it fast. She stared at him in disbelief. You're telling me we're stranded? In the middle of nowhere? He turned toward her, his voice steady but low. We'll be fine. There's a rest stop a mile back. I'll get us there. In this? She said, gesturing to the whiteout outside. Marcus pulled his scarf tight around his neck. You can stay in the car if you want, but if the engine's out, it'll get cold fast. Victoria hesitated, then followed as he stepped out into the storm. The wind cut through her coat like knives. She could barely see him a few steps ahead, but his voice carried through the snow. Stay close, he called. I've got you. For the first time in years, Victoria Ames, the woman who commanded rooms, who never needed help from anyone, found herself depending entirely on a stranger she had dismissed not 20 minutes earlier. And somewhere between the blinding snow and the sound of his boots crunching steadily through the ice, something inside her began to shift, because for the first time, she wasn't in control, and the man leading her through the storm was the only thing standing between her and the cold. The wind howled like a living thing, clawing at their coats as Marcus trudged forward through the deepening snow. Victoria struggled to keep up, her high heels slipping on the ice until, finally, she stopped and gasped. I can't walk in this! Marcus turned, his breath visible in the freezing air. Without a word, he shrugged off his thick jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. You'll walk better if you stop thinking about how hard it is, he said calmly. One step at a time. She looked at him wide-eyed. You'll freeze. I've seen worse, he said, adjusting his scarf. Keep moving. The rest stop's not far. The words didn't sound like comfort, more like an order from someone who'd learned to lead in the harshest conditions. Victoria bit back a retort and followed. By the time they reached the old rest stop, a small wooden building half buried in snow, her hands were numb and her legs felt like stone, Marcus pushed the door open with his shoulder and guided her inside. The space was dark, but dry. A few emergency lanterns hung from the wall, and in the corner stood a cold fireplace filled with half-burned logs. Marcus found a box of matches and got to work. "Don't just stand there. Check the cabinets for supplies," he said without looking back. Victoria blinked, unused to being told what to do. But when her shivering hands found a few cans of soup and a dusty kettle, she began to help. Slowly the fire caught, orange light blooming against the wooden walls, warming their faces. Marcus poured the water into the kettle and set it by the flames. "You did good," he said. She let out a shaky laugh. "I found a can opener. That's a first for me." He smiled. First time for everything. They sat by the fire, the silence stretching between them. Not awkward, but heavy with thoughts neither wanted to say aloud. After a while, she looked at him closely, noticing the faint scar along his jaw, the calm steadiness in his eyes. "You seem awfully prepared for this. What were you before you drove taxis?" He stirred the fire. "Marine Corps. 12 years." Her voice softened. "So that's why you weren't afraid out there." He gave a quiet chuckle. "Afraid? Sure. You just learned to keep moving through it." Victoria nodded slowly, staring into the flames. "I don't think I've ever done that." "What?" "Kept moving through fear. I usually just pay someone else to handle it." He looked at her then, not with pity, but with understanding. "Money doesn't buy you out of everything, ma'am. Sometimes you still gotta walk through the storm yourself." She met his eyes for the first time and didn't look away. "You're not what I expected." He smiled faintly. "No, neither are you." They talked for hours after that. About the city, his time overseas, her company, her childhood. For the first time in a long time, Victoria listened without interrupting. The sound of the blizzard outside faded into a distant roar as warmth filled the tiny rest stop. Later, when the fire burned low, she found herself whispering, "Thank you, Marcus, for not leaving me." He looked at her with quiet sincerity. "Wouldn't be right to leave anyone behind. Learned that a long time ago." Victoria turned back to the fire, her thoughts quiet and strange. Somewhere deep down, something inside her had started to thaw. And it wasn't just the cold leaving her hands. Because for the first time, she wasn't the woman who commanded the world. She was just a human being sitting beside another, equal, fragile, and grateful to still be warm. The storm outside howled for hours, hammering the walls of the old rest stop. The windows rattled, the wind screamed like something alive, but inside, the fire cast a soft glow, a circle of warmth and fragile peace. Victoria sat cross-legged near the flames, Marcus across from her, his silhouette steady against the flickering light. The world outside felt far away now. No business meetings, no clients, no expectations. Just two people, trapped together in the middle of nowhere. At first, they sat in silence. Then Victoria spoke, her voice quieter than before. "You know, I've never been this helpless, not once. I plan everything, flights, meetings, even my dinners. And now, here I am, stranded in a snowstorm with a stranger." Marcus smiled faintly. "Sometimes life plans better than we do." She tilted her head. "You say that like you've seen it happen." He nodded, poking the fire with a stick. "I have. Back in the Corps, we used to say that control's just an illusion. You can do everything right and still get blindsided. The trick isn't controlling it, it's surviving it." Victoria studied him, her brow softening. "Is that why you became a driver? After everything you've seen?" "I can't imagine this life being enough." He paused before answering. "After I got home, nothing felt real anymore. Noise, crowds, people rushing. It all reminded me of chaos. Driving gave me peace. Just me, the road, and a reason to keep moving. You see people in their real moments out there. Joy, anger, loneliness. Makes you realize everyone's fighting their own battle." His words hit something deep inside her. "You sound like someone who's made peace with the world." He gave a small, knowing smile. "Not quite. But I've made peace with myself. That's the harder part." For a long moment, she didn't say anything. Then, quietly, she confessed, "I don't think I've ever done that. Made peace, I mean. My whole life's been about winning, outworking, outthinking, outspending everyone around me. I've built so much, but It feels like nothing ever fills the space. Marcus leaned back against the wall. You're not the only one. Success can be a cold house if there's no warmth inside it. Victoria looked into the flames, her eyes reflecting orange light. You talk like a philosopher, not a cab driver. He chuckled. 12 years overseas will teach you a few things, mostly what matters and what doesn't. She smiled faintly, then hesitated before asking, Do you have family? He looked away, the light catching the scar along his jaw. Used to. Lost my wife 6 years ago. Cancer. She told me before she passed, don't stop living just because I do. So, I keep driving. Every passenger's a new chapter. Victoria's throat tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be, he said softly. Grief doesn't end. It changes shape. You just learn to carry it better. The wind outside howled again, but inside, the world felt still. Victoria pulled the coat tighter around her and said quietly, You're the first person who's talked to me like I'm not untouchable. Everyone else either fears me or flatters me. You just talk. Marcus looked at her gently. That's because I see you. Not the heels, not the money. Just you. For a moment, she couldn't look away. The fire crackled between them, the air charged with something new. Fragile, honest, real. Then Marcus stood and added another log to the fire. Get some rest, he said. Storm's still raging, but we'll be fine till morning. As Victoria lay down on a makeshift blanket by the hearth, she whispered, Marcus? He turned slightly. I'm glad it was you who picked me up today. He smiled quietly. Me too, ma'am. Me too. And as the firelight flickered over their faces, the storm outside raged on. But for the first time in years, neither of them felt cold. When Victoria opened her eyes, the world was quiet again. The blizzard had finally passed, leaving behind a calm, white silence that blanketed everything. Sunlight filtered weakly through the frosted windows, spilling over the wooden floor where the fire had died down to warm embers. Marcus was already awake, sitting by the window, his silhouette framed against the pale morning light. Steam rose from a tin cup of instant coffee he'd found somewhere. His presence, steady and calm, made the room feel grounded, like the storm had never happened. You're up early, she murmured, pulling the jacket tighter around her. He smiled without turning. Habit. Hard to sleep in silence after years of noise. Victoria sat up slowly, stretching sore muscles. Her hair was tangled, her clothes wrinkled, but for the first time in years, she didn't care. Is it safe to go now? Marcus stood and looked outside. Yeah. Roads are clearing. I'll check the car. When he stepped out, the cold rushed in, sharp but not biting. She watched him through the cracked window as he worked, brushing snow from the taxi and checking the tires. There was something deeply comforting in his movements. Deliberate, patient, resilient. She realized with a kind of awe that she trusted him completely. A few minutes later, he came back, face flushed from the cold. Engine's fine. Batteries sluggish but alive. We can head back to the city. She nodded, then hesitated. Marcus, thank you. I don't think I'd have made it through that storm without you. He gave a half smile. That makes two of us. The drive back was slow. The city emerged from the snow like a ghost waking up. Streets glistening, trees bowed under ice, people emerging cautiously from their homes. Victoria stared out the window, feeling strangely small and grateful. When they reached downtown, Marcus pulled up in front of her building. She didn't move right away. You sure you don't want me to pay you extra? She said softly. For last night, for saving me. He shook his head. You already paid. You listened. She blinked. That's not something I do often. He grinned. Then keep practicing. She laughed. A real laugh. Unguarded and bright. You're impossible, Marcus. Maybe, he said, but it works for me. She hesitated, then reached into her bag and pulled out a small business card. I run a foundation for veteran reintegration. We help with housing, work placement, therapy. You said you served, right? He looked at the card but didn't take it. I'm not looking for handouts. I'm not offering one, she said firmly. I'm offering partnership. You've got something people need, steadiness, real experience. We could use someone like you on the board. He looked at her, really looked, and saw sincerity where once there had been pride. You sure about that? Completely, she said. It's about time I surrounded myself with people who remind me what matters. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Marcus nodded slowly and took the card. I'll think about it, he said, his voice quiet. She smiled. That's all I ask. That evening, back in her penthouse, Victoria stood by the window and watched the snow fall again. Gentle this time, peaceful. Her reflection in the glass looked softer somehow, humbled, alive. She thought of Marcus, his calm in the storm, his patience, his strength. He had given her something no one else had in years: perspective. And somewhere across the city, in a small apartment with peeling paint and a view of the frozen streets, Marcus sat at his kitchen table, holding her card between his fingers. He smiled to himself, whispering, "Life's got a funny way of circling back." Outside, the snow kept falling. Not a storm this time, but a promise that even after the coldest night, warmth always finds its way back.